Hi, it's David C. Jones. Before the curtain goes up again, and we return to Bard on the Beach as another show is opening at Bard on the Beach. I'm with the deliciously wonderful Lois Anderson, who's tackling a not oft produced Shakespeare, Henry V. Hello, Lois. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good to see you.
Now, this show sort of reading up on it and your recent tackling it, it was sort of came out of the pandemic and also the war in the Ukraine. That did your mind then drift to Henry V? Is that
Actually, we were working on Henry V in 2019. It was going to play on the main stage in 2019 at Bard on the Beach.
oh
And then when the pandemic hit that summer, the season was canceled. And so it was put on hold. And then over the course of the pandemic and the events, several events that happened during that time, including Russia invading the Ukraine, um, I began to think about doing it as a smaller piece. And I asked Christopher if instead of doing it in the main stage with a large cast and a big sort of production budget, if we could do it as a more intimate piece in the
mm,
studio. And so that led to a second adaptation. And we never did the first adaptation.
right.
But this led to something that was just sort of speaking to me as a result of, many things that happened during the pandemic period. Yeah.
It's so funny that you're because you have such I don't want to say the word quirky, but you have such
You can say that. You can
a
say that.
well, you're visionary, right? And you go, I see things this way. So it's interesting to take a
Mm.
play about war and go, let's make it a small scale war, like to make it
Yeah.
smaller. Because this script is rich with characters because we have his youthful
Yeah.
friends influencing his current situation. So how do you help the audience when we're dealing with this old language and political intrigue? How do you help the audience? Like, are you color coding the characters or like,
Well, I used to say there was a thing that there was once a thing where at Bard or anywhere when you needed to change characters, you would put on a mustache or a different colored mustache. And so like sometimes there would be just someone who just had to do this or a beard and mustache, right? But you would sort of always know that it was the same actor,
yeah.
and because it was the same actor and they had the same voice and often the same sort of physical energy. And so that's one way. I mean, you're always trying to solve the fact in a Shakespeare play that there are many characters and you don't always have the the right team of actors, the right numbers for those characters. So in this situation I thought, well, let's not pretend that we can do Henry V, England, France, the Battle of Agincourt, and let's not pretend by even going halfway to. I think I had 19 actors in 2019. Let's actually make it a very small traveling troupe who are putting on the play Henry V,
Uh-huh.
and we see them and we know that they're going to play multiple actors and they're going multiple characters and they're going to change costumes in front of us, and we know that they're a little traveling troupe.
Nice.
And I think what's interesting is the first monologue of Henry V that Shakespeare wrote is a chorus who walks out on stage and says, sorry, we don't have all the bells and whistles. Wish we had a horse. Wish we had the ocean. Wish we had ships. Wish we had a king. Wish we could do a battle. We're just going to ask you to use your imagination. And when we say this, just imagine that you hear thundering hooves on a battlefield, and when one actor stands up, imagine that they represent 100 soldiers. So
Ah,
even right, so even Shakespeare, a very very famous that's a very famous chorus speech at the beginning of Henry V. Oh, for a muse of fire is how it begins, and so he even knows at the Globe Theatre when they first did it, we can't pull this off, audience. We're going to need your imagination.
right. Because yeah,
So we're yeah,
his wars, yeah, his the big fight scenes in most Shakespeare happen off stage anyways. They go, I'm reporting from the battlefield. Whoa, you should see it.
yeah. Yeah, that does happen. But even just the number of characters in these historical plays, there's so many characters, and you're just not going to have the numbers back then either. So playing with that idea, we have a chorus, and she's sort of the leader. She's the leader of the little troupe of actors that
Right.
are moving across a war zone. So the acting troupe is actually in a war zone, which kind of looks like Burning Man in my imagination. Um, but Burning Man isn't a war zone, but that's what kind of the landscape looks like that we were working with. Um, and this little troupe is moving across, and they perform the story of Henry V, which is a play about war, in a war zone themselves. And I sort of imagine a little bit. I don't know if you remember the cellist of Sarajevo. There was during the war in Sarajevo, there was fog that would come in the evening
Mm,
and in the main square, and there were orchestra members that would go out in the fog and play their instruments because they couldn't be the snipers couldn't see them at night because of the fog, and they
right.
would just play music for the town, for the city of Sarajevo. And there's a very famous book called The Cellist of Sarajevo. So it's a little bit like that. We have this little troupe that's performing a play about war in an environment where they are actually in a war zone.
It's sort of like this need for human creation, this need for expressiveness, even in darkness, right? The
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
think that's a really nice way of putting it. Actually, that's I think that's a really important way of putting it. What you just said,
yeah,
because for me the question is, and this happened during COVID. I really asked, what are actors? Who are actors? Who are storytellers? And what is the power of telling a story?
yeah.
And artists do that. Many different artists do that. And what is it that is when the community is going through darkness and plague and war? What is a story, and what does it allow us to do? Hopefully it allows us to um, it puts up questions, and it puts up a little mirror of a little mirror, really a little mirror,
Mhm.
because again, we represent life in miniature,
Yeah.
with a few actors and a little set, in the theater. But it allows us to ask questions about humanity and consider humanity and the state of humanity and what our options are, and allows us to gather together.
I
I
like to
think,
think now theater is more also about because I don't think necessarily theater changes the world. Because I don't think a warmonger comes and sits in a theater and goes, "Well, I'm not doing that anymore." But it is about helping people process trauma or process grief. And so that it's almost like a doctor or something or medicine in
yeah,
that regard.
yeah, it's a space. I think it's a space. Medicine is a great offer there. It's a space where people come together that don't know each other
Yeah.
and experience a story together, and then by the end of the evening go away, and something has changed. Just the fact that you've gathered together is, I mean, just gathering together listening to a story is quite a political act, right? In many places in the world, and certainly in a war zone and during a plague, it's a real something to just gather and tell a story.
Now you're in the smaller theater, still quite a big theater, but a smaller theater, and something that they've done for the last couple of years now, probably for the last 10 years almost now, is unlike the big stage where it's the two actor or the actors are rotating between two plays. Here it's this show and then the other show because you're not going to. I think it's Goblin Macbeth is the other show, so you're not sharing actors with that show, and you're going to go for a couple week or a month or and a half, and then they're going to go for a month and a half. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me about like, just briefly so you got multiple people playing people. Are you also introducing like little toy soldiers or dolls or something to go, and then a battle
Oh,
happens?
there are some little paper boats in, in order to represent, the fleet, the armada leaving that left England and went to conquer and invade France. We do have little paper boats, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so there is a little bit of that. Um, and
You don't have to give
oh
away all the
yes,
magic.
I can't give it all away. I have to save a few things. But it really is a troupe of 9 actors with their suitcases and a few bits and bobs coming in, and they have to tell the story with what they have.
Nice.
And so that's part of the fun is staging that. You're going to take us to a scene at sea, but all you've got is a couple suitcases and some chairs to do it. And how are you going to tell the story when you only have a few little things? Yeah.
Nice, nice. What's your what we're gonna do two more questions. What is right now your favorite part about working at this? Because you're opening soon, so it's coming down to the wire, as they say. So what right now when you look at the schedule for the day, you go, "Ooh, good, we're going to be doing this today." So I'm very excited.
Well, there's a lot of music. There's some beautiful music that has been composed by Jaleesa Pancanea. And I had been reading poetry um, during the pandemic. So I was able to pull some lyrics from some classical poets
Oh,
and like world poets, and Jaleesa set those poems to music, or verses from those poems to music. So there's some gorgeous singing, and just hearing the company, this little group of 9 singing in this little tent in the middle of this little park in the city is something that it's just absolutely, it's just incredible. And again, it's the power of a small group of people singing,
yeah,
which is quite, and the voices just sort of soar down there. So that's exciting. As we're really in tech right now, so we're putting things up in the tent for the first time and looking at them in the tent. We've just left the rehearsal room, and so seeing the pictures, seeing what it looks like in the tent is really exciting too. And working with the designers, because right now we've got lights and sound, and
ooh,
we've got Amir Ofik, who's our set designer. We've got props coming in, so it's sort of like Christmas. All these little bits and pieces coming in, and there's bombs going off, and there's lighting cues, and we're just sort of playing, well, let's try this or that or this or that, no, that's not right, let's try this. Yeah, definitely the moment where the actors and the designers all get into the space together and get to play together, that's exciting.
nice, nice. Now you get a chance now to sell the audience watching this interview. You're going to look right at the little green dot on your laptop and you're going to go,
Oh, okay.
here's why you shouldn't miss Henry V, or however you want to promote it. So you sell your show. Ready?
Okay,
And
okay, go.
action.
This is why you shouldn't miss Henry V. It's a play about a war, and the world right now is in a really tough spot, and it's been in tough spots before, but right now it's in a really scary spot, and there's a lot of anxiety rippling around out there because of climate change and war and plague and political machinations. Henry V is about a war, but what we're actually going to be looking at with this little troupe of 9 actors is where love arrives in the story of war, and where community happens, where people sing together and dance together and laugh together and love each other and take care of each other. So that's what we're looking at in Henry V. And I think it's a great message for the world right now, and how to move through times of anxiety and times where things feel bleak, to be reminded that there is love and we do connect with each other. And humans, humanity also has the gift of generosity and compassion and play.
I love that. That was my favorite commercial ever. Nice. Well, Lois, continued success as you get the show up and going. I know it's going to be spectacular. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with me. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.